Board of Commissioners Finance Committee to order. Please call the roll.
Cavell.
Here.
Kowal.
Here.
McGilvray.
Here.
Howell. Charles.
Present.
Long.
Here.
Moss.
Present.
Markham.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Good. Okay, next up, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody would please rise, if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next up, we have approval of the minutes. Moved by Commissioner McGilvray, supported by Commissioner Kowal. All in favor of approving the minutes from the previous meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Minutes are approved. Next up, we have approval of the agenda, and I would like to move items A, B, and C under presentations up to make them items G, H, and I under communications.
I'll move that with the
Moved by
changes.
Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Moss. Do we need to vote on that? Okay. Let's, is a voice vote okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, agenda is modified as discussed. Next up, we have public comment. This is 3 minutes for anyone who wishes to address anything on today's agenda. Please state your name and the community in which you reside.
Ross Barranco, the city of Levy. Under item 7E, I'd like to hear a definition for the benefit, the pension increases. And 9A, 9B, I object to. 9B, I have no idea what a gun intelligence center is. And 11B, the broadband feasibility. I'd like to see that we have domestic suppliers rather than foreign suppliers. And on the Oxford schools, I'm wondering why we're still having to look at funding almost 6 months after the incident. It seems like this should have been all taken care of within about the first 3 months of the incident. And it seems like it's not a very timely attention being paid to these items. And that's what I would like to see it go a little faster to make sure they get what they need in a more timely fashion rather than dragging it out over 5 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address us at this time? Seeing no one, I will close public comment and we'll move on to communications. I need a motion to receive and file our communications. Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Charles. We need a prompt the vote, please.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, we have accepted all our communications. Next up, we have 2 presentations, starting with item 8A, our audit presentation. I need a motion. Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner Kowal. And I believe it's Plant and Moran, or who's making the presentation? Please join us at the end of the table. Make sure you're using a microphone. State your name and who you're with.
Good afternoon. Tim St. Andrew, partner at Plant Moran. I appreciate you having me here today to discuss the results of the county's financial statement audit for the year ended September 30, 2021. Before I get into the deliverables, I would like to thank Kyle, Lynn, and Cheryl, and really their whole team for their help during the audit. As many of you may know, the audit process, it really starts back in September, October, and goes right up until the end of March for the financial statement audit. And right now, we're actually entering the single audit period, which is the audit of the county's federal awards. So it's really a September, and the single audit is due June 30. So it's really a September through June process. So it's a long process. It takes a lot of time and effort and resources, and we certainly appreciate their effort. And I would venture to guess that this year was probably one of the more difficult audits that they've had to go through because of some of the recent retirements in the department. So we were having some constrained resources. We had some new faces come in that don't have the same experience with the county. Certainly the Workday implementation going on, all of the federal funding that the team is dealing with and administering. So there was just a lot going on, and to add an audit on top of that is a lot of work. So I wasn't going to go into the actual financial statements. I was going to focus more on the two letters that were issued as part of the audit, and I believe those start on page 179 of the packet. So the first letter here, and there's actually two letters, but I think they're combined into one for what you're seeing. So the first letter here is what I'll refer to as our end of audit letter. So if you recall back in the fall, you would have received a pre-audit letter that detailed out the scope and timing of the audit and would have solicited feedback from you if you had any questions, concerns. This is really to complete the circle, to now let you know that we completed the audit, and if anything significant happened, we would put it in this letter. So I won't cover the whole thing. I will point out a few things, though. So on the top of my page 2, I assume your page 180, you can see that the county did implement one new accounting standard this year, GASB Statement Number 84, Fiduciary Activities. And while this didn't have a significant impact on the county's financial statements, it did require the county to go through, identify the fiduciary activities, and under the new accounting framework, determine whether those still qualify as fiduciary activities or not. And so there are a few things that were moved around within the financial statements, but that was really the main impact, and it wasn't terribly significant. We noted no transactions entered into by the county for which there's a lack of authoritative guidance. No transactions entered recognized in a different period than when the transaction occurred. In the next section here, we talk about accounting estimates, and the reason we communicate this is because there are estimates determined by management within the financial statements, and so these are things that we can't necessarily agree to a known figure from an invoice or a receipt. And so the ones that we've identified here would be the accounts receivable related to unbilled water and sewer, and then various liabilities for workers' compensation, general claims, healthcare cost, property tax refunds, and then pension and retiree healthcare. So to become comfortable that these estimates are reasonable, we look at historical info, we look at actuary reports, other information received from third-party administrators, certainly talk to management in order to get comfortable, and we were able to get comfortable that these estimates are reasonably stated. So if we move to the next page, two headings here. One, difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We encountered no difficulties in performing the audit or dealing with management. And then down a couple sections, there's a heading, corrected and uncorrected misstatements. We did have two misstatements that were identified during the audit. The first one was an adjustment of $14.8 million to increase property tax revenue and decrease unavailable revenue. And this is as a result of actual property tax collections received within 60 days after year end. So anything collected within 60 days after year end, the county should actually recognize as revenue in 2021. So this is based on that actual figure. And the second one was an adjustment of $8.5 million to adjust the expense and accounts payable in the SOCS-DS fund for an accrual that was recorded twice. Now I will move to the next letter, which should only be a couple pages past where we're at. You may have to keep where I'll go on this letter. This is what I'll refer to as our internal control letter. And if you get past the auditor's report, we did have 2 findings as part of the audit that we communicated in this letter. So if you, on the top, the heading is Schedule of Findings and Responses, is where I'll start. So the first finding that we have here relates to year-end journal entries that were identified during the audit and posted by the county and included in the financial statements. But when it comes to any type of audit adjustment, the bar is pretty low, where if we find anything, it will be considered a material weakness. And so this year we did have 2 adjustments. The ones that I referred to in the other letter related to property taxes and the accrual that was recorded twice. So the recommendation at the bottom of the page is just continuing to work with the applicable departments to make sure that at year end, the procedures, the controls are in place to identify all year-end adjustments before the audit starts. And then the next page, there is the views of responsible officials that I would encourage you to take a look at if you haven't. I won't cover that here today. And then if we go to the next page, we have finding number 2, and this is deemed to be a significant deficiency. And this relates to the general ledger and the underlying accounting records not reconciled and closed in a timely manner after year end. And this really relates to those things that I started with the capacity constraints, new people brought into some of the key positions that would handle the accounting records, Workday, the federal funding. So we were ultimately able to receive everything. There was just a delay in order for us to perform our audit procedures on those items. So, and this would be a finding that I believe will self-correct as the county hires its way out of this for some of those key positions, as some of the newer faces this year now have a full year of experience in the department. Workday, I know, is going live next week. So again, I think from a resource standpoint, I think this should take care of itself next year. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the floor. Commissioner Moss?
Thank you very much. I know you've done a number of audits for the county. I wouldn't say that this is scathing, but I will say it is troubling, and if it is a function of what amounts to staff turnover, which one would expect in, with the turnover of administrations, it's understandable. But I would find this as I don't know if red flag is quite serious enough, but it is it ought to be troubling that we got to double check that we're moving to put things back on track. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate, always good having you audit. And it's where you find this stuff so that you can remedy it. But clearly, this should be a warning. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? Commissioner Cavell.
Just so I understand, sir, the one of the 2, one of the issues was, findings was the actual collection of property tax revenue was $14.8 million higher in fiscal year 2021. That was recorded as a 2022 activity, you're saying? When for 60 days it needs to be a 2021? So,
I believe what happens is that an estimate is recorded at year end based on historical collections through 60 days. We have the benefit of coming in after 60 days has passed, and we can look at the actual amount that's been collected. And I know going forward, talking with Lynn and Cheryl, what they'll do is just wait to post that actual number until that 60 days has passed, so we have the actual booked and not an estimate.
okay. And year end, you mean fiscal year end?
Fiscal year end,
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Fiscal Services, do you have anything you want to add to this?
And we'll speak to it during the audit presentation.
Okay.
The after presentation.
Okay. Commissioner Charles, you had something.
Yeah, so that significant deficiency finding where it says views of responsible officials and plan corrective action, and you said that you anticipate that it will self-correct. What percentage of chance is it that it won't self-correct?
That's a hard question to answer.
Okay.
Maybe impossible to answer.
Okay. I just don't want us to assume that it will self-correct, and it doesn't, and then it becomes a ongoing deficiency. But it's been lifted to the conversation, and certainly the smart people around the room will keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Also the dumb ones.
Perhaps.
Okay. Well, and I believe our fiscal people heard that and will keep an eye on it and let us know if they're still continuing to have problems with staffing that get in the way of getting the job done. So, going to leave it in their lap for now. Okay. Anything else from anyone regarding the audit? Thank you very much for your presentation. I guess we need to prompt the vote.
Thank you. So I can't wait
You have
so long.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Next up, we have item 8B, fiscal year 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, ACFR. I need a motion. Commissioner Cavell, supported by Commissioner Kowal. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning. I'll kick things off here and then hand it off to the experts. So our annual comprehensive financial report was completed at the end of March within the statutory deadline set by the state of Michigan. I just want to highlight a few things, to kind of echo Mr. St. Andrew. This was I think a very intense year, between staff turnover, the workday implementation, and the federal funds. So, I want to thank Lynn and Cheryl and their teams for all the extra hours and efforts that they put in. We are certainly very cognizant of those two findings and will ensure that those are corrected going forward. I'd also like to, I don't think I've had the opportunity to introduce Cheryl to the full committee. I think I've made some individual introductions, but Cheryl Johnson's been on board with the county since last fall, starting off in one of our chief positions in fiscal services. She is going to be, as of July 2nd, I think, taking over for Lynn as the county's fiscal services officer. Cheryl brings a long track record in local finance, having worked in Ferndale and Pontiac, among other places, and actually with Plant Moran before that, working on audit issues. She's very active with the Michigan Government Finance Officers Association. So we know that no one can fully replace Lynn Sonkis, but Cheryl is fully capable to move things forward and continue to build on the strong foundation that Lynn leaves behind. So I did want to make that formal introduction. And then I would also take just a point of not privilege, because I'm not a member of this committee, but I did want to flag that the two rating agencies did issue their updated credit opinions last year for the county, and both of them reaffirmed our AAA bond rating, so we're pleased with that. They were both extremely positive in terms of the county's financial positions and highlighted some of the continued improvements we've made in our budget practices. So I'd like to thank this committee for their partnership, in those things. So with that, I will turn things over to Lynn to talk specifically about the financial report.
Good afternoon. So with the 2021 fiscal year closing, you may recall in December, at your December Finance Committee meeting, we presented the year-end resolution report. We're still actively working through year-end closing through the end of March. However, we provided you the snapshot in time at that point of what the status was for the county financials as it relates to the general fund and a lot of the proprietary internal service funds. So much of that information is the same and is reflected in the official technical ACFR document However, there were a couple of changes that did impact a couple of the funds as noted as part of the audit presentation. Namely, the change to the general fund was the recognition of the additional $14.8 million for property tax revenue over what was presented to you in December with your year-end resolution report. That was, that prompted us to reopen the books and post that entry. We did have a reasonable estimate at the time to book that before we close the books in early November in order to present the year-end resolution to you. But we will always, in the future, look to that that November 30th actual collections. There was a little bit of a lag on the recording or receipting of some of those property tax revenue collections for the 60-day period post 9/30. That could then change in the future if we have a reasonable estimate at the time. We present the year-end report to you in late November, December. The actual official report of the county's finances are always going to be reflected in the county's ACFR document. So that was the significant item for the general fund, and the other item was the roughly $8 million that were related to the Southeast Oakland County Sewage Disposal System, a proprietary fund that has a couple of different funds that roll up together for reporting purposes, and it was, I'll say, a longer-term liability adjustment where that was recorded twice. So in both cases, the county wasn't overstating its financial position. With the year-end report, this is actually an improved position for 2021 over what we presented to you in December. You should have received an electronic copy of the letter indicating that the ACFR is available online. We do have several hard copies here with us if anyone would like to have an official hard copy of the document, and we have some more back at the office that we can send if there's more than a couple of you that would like to have a copy of that.
For an extra $5, you can have Lynn autograph it.
I'm in. Right now, I'm in.
As mentioned by Tim St. Andrews, this is the first, I'll say, phase of the official financial reporting. Our next report that is due June 30th for the county's schedule of federal awards, and we'll make sure that the Finance Committee gets a copy of that as well. So this is obviously a lot more technical document, a lot of detail in here. We do also, the county does prepare what's referred to as the popular annual financial report, kind of highlighting the financial highlights, and that will be presented or submitted to, posted online and submitted to GFOA at the end of May. So we'll make sure that the commissioners get a copy of that, what's referred to as the popular annual financial report at that time. And if there's any questions, we'd be happy to entertain those.
Thank you. I see Mr. Moss over here I heard him say, I love the.
I do, I love this document. This is it. Broadband helped train me on this.
Commissioner Kowal.
When did it become ACFR? It's always been
This
CAFR.
year, yeah.
This is bugging me.
So actually, last year, there was a GASB standard issued, and there was GFOA had a recommendation that they, to ban the acronym formerly known as Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, as there are some derogatory terms in other countries that they wanted it to no longer be used, so we've changed it over to the Annual Comprehensive Financial
Okay.
Report.
So,
You mean like when the Chevy Nova, Nova that they were selling worldwide, and we found out it means doesn't go in Spanish?
And that was true. My grandma had one. It didn't go up a hill one time.
I wasn't going to say that.
that's funny. Okay.
Thanks for clarifying.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for this team? Welcome aboard, Cheryl. We're going to miss you, Lynn. I don't, I hope you give Cheryl your phone number.
Speed dial.
We're still debating that.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, then let's prompt the vote.
up and sand and cigar ashes would fall out. They've been reading it on the beach.
That's
I'm a
fine.
yes.
Okay, thank you. We have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have, where are we here? Item 9A, the IT Development Report, second quarter, 2022. I need a motion. Commissioner McGilvery, supported by Commissioner Charles.
Sure.
Okay, hello, Mr. Tim.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So today is my quarterly presentation. The resolution effectively transfers allocated funds from the general fund into departments so that IT can essentially be paid, if you will, for development and support. As you know, we track effort, we track time for all of the work that is done in IT. A summary of that tracking is in the report that was provided in communications. And this particular bill basically uses that time tracking to calculate work what we've done on projects for not only county departments, but also the other proprietary funds. So that's why there are two bills. I believe the resolution outlines 1.13 million for the general fund, general purpose departments, and 1.5 million for the special revenue and proprietary departments. So that's for the second quarter of the fiscal year, which is January through March. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Tim? If not, let's prompt the vote.
We have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next up is item 9B, the 2022 Parks and Recreation Property Tax Levy. I need a motion. Commissioner McGilvery, supported by Commissioner Charles.
Good morning again. I'd like to make one more introduction while we're at it. Kim Coy has come on board with the county. She'll be moving into the position that Holly Conforti is in right now, as Holly departs at the same time as Lynn. Kim comes to us from working on the budget in Washtenaw County, so she'll bring us another county perspective. We know Oakland County is the leader in county financial practices, but there's always room to improve and bring in new perspectives. So she'll sort of be my right hand on some of the budget things that will come before the committee. So wanted to make that formal introduction as well. So before you have two resolutions to approve the property tax levies, the two countywide property tax levies we have each year. So the first levy in front of you is the Parks and Rec levy. As you recall, this levy was approved by the voters in November 2020 at 0.35 mils. Last year, under the provisions of the Headley Amendment, that was rolled back to 0.3431 mils. And then based on the final taxable value data that you heard about at the last meeting for the current year, and the final inflation number for last year, that number will be rolled back further. Actually, I said the wrong number. So it was rolled back last year from 0.35 to 0.347. This will roll it back to 0.343. That is estimated to bring in $23.9 million for the Parks and Recreation Commission and Department. This is, the bizarre mechanics of Headley. The tax rate's going down. The revenue will actually be a little higher than what was estimated last year. I don't have an exact number, but it's a few $100,000 on the park side. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions on the Parks levy? Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, this is less about the parks millage itself, but how low will this millage rate go before? Or is there a cap, or, I mean, I know there's a formula based on like
There is
inflation.
no floor under the Headley Amendment mechanics, so, how quickly the rate comes down will depend on the level of inflation and taxable value growth going forward. Certainly you've seen with the countywide operations millage, that rate has come down from above 5 when it was originally approved in the late 70s, and now we're dipping down below 4. So,
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Moss.
Yeah, just to reiterate that Headley was, its purpose was to deal with inflationary times. It came out in 78, and passed, and so this is what it is here to deal with, so that inflation doesn't eat up everybody's tax money. So just as long as we're copacetic with this intricate arcana of the Headley Amendment, and we're legal with it, that's good.
the math is correct, I can confirm.
I would expect no less.
Well, and I would just like to comment, we have folks sometimes who come to our meetings and say, you're raising our taxes. We're not raising people's taxes, and in fact, by way of the Headley, the tax rate is dropping every year as long as we're in this kind of position. So, strict dollar numbers, as Commissioner Moss said, the Headley was a protection for the property owner. As the value of the property was climbing so fast, the tax rate was modified to help the property owner. So I just want the public to know we are not raising taxes. Last time we raised taxes was the millage that the voters approved for the parks. So, Commissioner Long.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that because, as you know, on our meetings, we keep saying, everyone keeps saying we're raising all the taxes and stuff, but I just want to further comment on what Chairman Markham said is, in 20 years that I've been here, the taxes, and Commissioner Colwell was here 20 years ago too, it is actually lower now than it was 20 years ago. So it's actually lower, because of Headley and stuff, but it's lower than when I started here as a commissioner 20 years ago. So I would like that on the record, and I might have to say that at our board meeting also. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Long, who is, by definition, our longest-serving commissioner
Yes, I
right
think
now.
I
She
am.
is the
It is
dean of
definitely
the.
down,
She
so.
is the dean of the Board of
Yes.
Commissioners.
Yeah,
So.
thank you.
Yeah. And the Parks millage, excuse me, Madam Chair,
Yes,
the Parks
Commissioner
millage
Moss.
itself was rolled over, basically.
Yeah.
So this is not a brand-new,
Correct.
a brand-new tax. It was re-upped after it
After the
expired the
election.
last time.
Correct.
We had the election. So it is
Yes.
more, because the people voted for it. That one is more,
Right.
yeah.
And just as a reminder, the Parks millage is levied on the winter tax bill, so we're approving this now for that tax levy to occur later in the year, whereas the operating millage is levied in July, so.
Good to know. Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this Parks tax levy? Okay, let's prompt the vote, please.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion carries. Next up, we have item 9C, which is approval of the 2022 county millage tax levy. I need a motion. Commissioner McGilvery, supported by Commissioner Cavell.
All right, same basic story here in terms of the math. Last year, the county operating millage rate was 4.0132. When you approved the budget last year, we had estimated that for this year, the rate would be 3.9880. As we now have the final taxable value and inflation data, it's actually going to be slightly below that, 3.9686. So same story. The tax rate is coming down, although estimated revenues for 2022 will actually be about $4 million higher than what had been estimated in the budget. This levy is estimated to bring in, it's not in the resolution, but in the neighborhood of 270 million. Oh,
Yeah, it is.
It is.
276.
$276 million. And we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions on the main tax levy for the county? Commissioner Cavell?
So it says the rate, let me use the right words. Taxable value increased by 6.4%. If I remember right, isn't there some sort of ceiling that you can't account for? So are we accounting for the 6.4%, or isn't the 5% the ceiling?
So correct. On top of Headley, we have Proposal A, which caps the amount at an individual homeowner level, unless there's a transfer of property. The taxable value can only grow by the rate of inflation. For this year, that's 3.3%. The 6.46% does account for that, which is kind of hard to believe. But the 6.4, the gap between the 3.3 and the 6.46 is a function of two things. One, we had an extremely high level of new construction last year, which isn't capped, and two, with the strong housing market and how much prices went up on sales, that creates growth in taxable value that's uncapped. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Please prompt the vote.
We have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Motion carries. That ends the department recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will move on to the item 10, Public Health and Safety Committee recommendations. Item A, with the Michigan Department of Corrections for the Community Corrections Comprehensive Plan fiscal year 2023. I need a motion. Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner Charles. Is there someone who's going to speak to this?
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Eric Schmidt, Interim Manager with Community Corrections.
Good afternoon, Mr. Schmidt.
Good afternoon. So before you have the grant application with the Michigan Department of Community Corrections for the Community Corrections Comprehensive Plan for fiscal year 23. The amount requested in the application is $2,022,553 for the FY23 fiscal year, and that would fund 13 full-time positions and 1 part-time non-eligible position within the Community Corrections Division, and would also provide partial funding for 2 full-time positions, half being paid under the grant and half being paid by the county. And that is, again, a continuation budget, so there's no changes there. And we have seen a decline in some of our jail population and utilization of our jail programming. And so this grant application seeks the funding of 2 full-time eligible positions with the Sheriff Department to provide our comprehensive services there. And so this grant application has completed the grant review process in accordance with the grant's policy and has been approved by the Community Corrections Advisory Board. So this is a grant that we've received since 1994, and I stand before you for any questions.
Okay. Anybody on the commission? I'll open it up. Commissioner Long.
I'm looking through the resolution. Is that our normal funding, or was it up or down? I can't find it in there.
That is a continuation budget request, so it's the same amount we received last year, or this year.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't find where it's on there. It's probably in there.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Commissioner Charles.
Thank you. More so a comment. I was just making sure it wasn't being addressed later on in the agenda. But if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Schmidt, this is National Correction Officers Week. and wanted to at least acknowledge it because apparently something is happening right now that we all would have probably been at short of this meeting happening. So definitely want to just acknowledge our corrections officers. Certainly they go with a thankless job probably most of their careers, and just want to make sure that we share that.
Thank you, Commissioner
Yes,
Charles.
Yes, very, very proud of the Sheriff Department and the corrections officers at the jail.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, please prompt the vote.
Seven yeas, zero nays.
Motion carries. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Next up, we have item 10B with the U.S. Department of Justice for the fiscal year 2022 Local Law Enforcement Crime Gun Intelligence Center Integration Initiative. That's a mouthful. Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So this is a new grant application opportunity for us. We're partnering with we're proposing to partner with the Prosecuting Attorney's Office and the ATF to address firearm-related crime in the city of Pontiac. What we're asking to do is create one Deputy 2 position in the Sheriff's Office and then a paralegal in the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. It would be approximately $691,000 over a 3-year period.
Okay. Commissioner Long.
Okay, that was my question. So why is this grant just for Pontiac? Is it one of the, because there's crime everywhere in Oakland County, so, you know, with guns. So I just wonder why is this only Pontiac?
That's where the primary, obviously, firearm-related crimes are, and we have Lieutenant Marsman, who is an expert in that field. If you have
Okay.
any questions, he gave a
Okay,
really
and
good
then-
overview yesterday.
Okay, so I just wondered why, you know, this funding is for Pontiac, but then also, when they collect these weapons now with this new position and stuff, where are the weapons going?
I guess I can address both those questions. My name's Sam Marsman. I'm a lieutenant, detective lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office assigned to the Pontiac substation. I currently run the detective bureau there. Right now, I currently have 10 detectives that handle our general caseload. And I average about 400 cases a month that I'm assigning between those 10 detectives. And I do have one detective I currently just task out with violent crimes and gun cases, and since this year, he's had over 100 cases, him alone. I guess the reason why it would be going to Pontiac, obviously, we have a need with the amount of gun violence and gun-related calls. However, we also have 2 ATF agents that are assigned out of the Pontiac substation. So they're from the CGIC, I believe is the
Crime Gun Intelligence.
Yeah. So they're currently operating out of our substation with my detective as well. And to address your question about why Pontiac, we still are utilized in other areas. For instance, obviously with the Oxford school shooting, our detectives, our whole detective bureau went up there, the ATF, and we're still actively involved in that investigation as well. We're assisting. But I guess the specific need is it within that community, but we are the ATF, and we're utilizing them everywhere countywide.
That's what I was gonna ask. So if you had to assist someone else, you obviously from Pontiac substation would go help someone else.
Correct.
Okay. And then I guess the other was where were the guns, like when you collect these, where do they go? You know, I mean, maybe you can't say.
Yeah,
You know.
they all go to our property.
Okay, all right, so it will be the same with this program?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Thank you. Making sure that you need another building or something. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else on the commission? Commissioner Cavell.
Thank you, Chair. So yesterday, Chair Woodward asked this, and so if I could get a more succinct, explicit answer. There's a Pontiac anti-violence initiative that is going on now, right, that has community meetings. Could what, if any, role does the Sheriff's Office see participating in that? Because it's talking about anti-violence, not just from when people have guns and are pulling them out and using them on each other, but further upstream. Are you all participating in this? Have you been invited? Do you know about this? How's it going?
Yes, and no and yes. We are. I talked to David Williams just last week, and we will be participating in those meetings, community gatherings. They're going to make sure we're going to communicate back and forth to make sure we are part of it.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, I will ask to prompt the vote.
Can I get one of those things?
Oh, you got it signed by Lynn?
Yeah. Did you?
Oh, that's funny.
That's so funny.
You did?
Mine's been signed by Plants and Moran.
Yeah.
Did you give her $5?
Sands on the $5.
Charles?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Eileen, you can have this. You can have this one, Eileen.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion carries.
I didn't see any of
Thank
you guys here. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm missing it too, so.
I know.
Yeah, I guess you are.
Oh, that's right. All right, next up, we'll go fast. We have item 10C with the State of Michigan for fiscal year 2023 Automobile Theft Prevention Authority. I need a motion. Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. All right.
So this is our annual grant application for the auto theft unit. I'm sure you've seen it before, and then obviously we'll be back when we get the award, but this year it's $2.2 million. It requires a 50% match. The local units that participate with us, they pay their own 50% match. We're asking to continue 13 positions. 8 of those are within Oakland County. One of those 8 is contracted with the city of Pontiac. The other 5 units are Royal Oak, Detroit, Hazel Park, Southfield, and Farmington Hills. So basically, it's a continuation of our program that we've had for many, many years.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Long?
Real quick, because it's long, I know. So are the auto thefts rate up, going up or down? I mean, for the auto thefts, how are we doing?
They're busy, I do know that. I would imagine they're going up.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Just a PSA to remind people to lock their vehicles.
Don't leave your purse.
And try not to leave valuables in plain sight. Goes a long way.
Yeah.
Out where I am, they're stealing catalytic converters off of cars in people's
There were so much.
driveways and in front of their houses, yeah. Yeah, crazy. So, okay, if we have no other questions, let's prompt the vote.
Seven yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item is item 11, under Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee recommendations. Item A, appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for the Clinton River Trail Safety and Maintenance Improvement Project. Motion from Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. We have Kristen Wiltfang from Economic Development to tell us about it, so welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to address the committee today. My name is Kristen Wiltfang. I'm the Administrator of Trails, Transportation, and Environment in the Economic Development Department. Before you today, you have a request for $120,000 appropriation for the American Rescue Plan funding for the Clinton River Trail project. This is a 1.75-mile maintenance improvement project on an existing rail trail through the city of Pontiac and Sylvan Lake. The Clinton River Trail is a 16-mile rail trail. It goes through 5 cities of Sylvan Lake, Pontiac, Auburn Hills, Rochester Hills, and Rochester. It's also a key segment on the Great Lake to Lake Trail, which is a cross-state trail that starts in South Haven over on Lake Michigan, and it's about 270 miles over to Port Huron and ends over on Lake Huron there. So this trail provides great access for our local residents, and it's in desperate need of being upgraded for ADA compliance and also being brought up to federal and state standards. The total project cost is $726,000. And I mentioned before, it's 1.75 miles, and there's a map in your packet for additional details, but it goes from Bagley Street all the way over to Pontiac Drive in Sylvan Lake there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or.
Commissioner Moss.
Yeah, the trails, love the trails. Wasn't Larry Obrecht got those things done to begin with? Now, we're putting all this money in to bring the condition of the trail up, but what's it going to cost to keep the condition of the trail up year after year after year? So that, what's the word we're using now? Sustainability. What is it going to cost once we have spent this money, which I understand is, of course, not going to be coming forever? Then what? How do we keep the trail in good shape?
Yep. So the county will be putting in $120,000. The ongoing maintenance costs will be the burden of the city of Pontiac, and they are putting the maintenance plan together for the long-term maintenance on the trail. The surface of it, we typically get about 10 to 15 years out of a crushed limestone surface. This was originally done in 2004. So that original surface is just beyond its useful life. And so we need to make those upgrades. But yes, the city of Pontiac has committed to that ongoing maintenance for like the road crossing, pavement markings, and we're also installing a new pedestrian push button signal to stop traffic over by Bodette Park. So the city has also agreed to the maintenance with the Road Commission for Oakland County to upgrade and maintain that signal.
Thank you.
I wish I had exact costs for you. I'm sorry, Commissioner Moss.
Close enough.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kowal.
Okay, which mic do I use here? Thank you. Yeah, this is not, this is just a general statement, I guess, that it was kind of my understanding that we're going to see some kind of an overarching plan for the ARPA funds. And I see it starting to go out kind of in bits and pieces. Granted, this isn't a whole big amount of money, but there was all this big talk of having all these subgroups and how this money was going to be spent. And now it's just kind of going here and there and everywhere, and there doesn't seem to be any big consensus that I'm aware of on what buckets of money we're putting the ARPA funds in. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Good comment. Thank you, Commissioner.
I'd like to see one.
Okay. I think we could, is Sean here?
Yeah, he told me that, so I'm going to press him on it.
Okay, yeah. Yes, okay. Anyone else on this Clinton River Trail? Let's prompt the vote, please.
Spend it while it's still worth something.
We have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right, next up, we have item 11B, appropriating the American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for a broadband feasibility study. I guess I'm the person in charge of rolling this out. This is one of the 6 buckets that we're supposed to be looking at for the ARPA funds. We have a subcommittee of this, the Board of Commissioners that's looking at this, working with the administration. There is a study underway at the state of Michigan trying to evaluate broadband access all over the state. And however, their study does not include Oakland County. And the reason it doesn't include Oakland County is because we are considered to have broadband across the county in almost everywhere it's needed. And that state of Michigan study was looking at more rural areas and underserved areas. So what we want to do is, for Oakland County, figure out what we have, what it looks like, where the weaknesses are, whether we have coverage. We just really don't know yet. So this is an up to $1 million to go out for an RFP to hire someone to do this feasibility study for us. And any questions? Oh, we need a motion, yep. Commissioner McGilvery?
Don't you, can you motion yourself?
I don't think so, but somebody
Okay.
else motioned. Commissioner Cavell, okay. Commissioner McGilvery, do you have a question?
I have a question. How did we determine $1 million?
It's a not-to-exceed number. It's what we thought would be necessary to do generally a comprehensive evaluation. It is a bit of a shot in the dark in terms of how much it's going to cost, but we don't expect it to cost more than $1 million to do this.
And who's doing this feasibility study?
We would go out for RFP to hire someone to do it. Just like the group that's doing it for the state of Michigan, we'd have somebody do that similar thing here in Oakland County.
Here's my concern. My concern is if we post up $1 million, you can be sure that the company that's bidding on that is going to bid close to $1 million. I mean, why isn't it brought to us after we've got an estimate of what it's going to cost, and then appropriate the funds?
That's a good question. Mr. Carlson, why don't you come to the end of the table and help me out here?
Yeah. I'll just speak to it from a purchasing perspective and a procurement perspective. I mean, you know, that has been the desire whenever we put something out to bid, that we have approval from the Board of Commissioners before something goes out. So, I mean, we put that price tag in there. I think it's an appropriate price tag, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, that happens all the time, and not just on this. On many things that we put out there, there's a history.
I'm fully aware.
There's a history of things. So, I mean, I think what's important to understand is we do have great procurement professionals, and Scott Guzzi and the team that he has there in regards to really understanding whether somebody is expanding the scope more than what needs to be called for or not. So it is important for negotiations. Just because there's $1 million doesn't mean that's where the price tag needs to be at.
Let me ask this. Will the bidders know that there's $1 million available?
It depends how savvy they are about Oakland County. Yeah, if they have a lobbyist, the answer is probably yes. So, I mean, this is a problem that every government has, whether it's the state of Michigan, counties, or cities. When they get the approval on the front end, you have to have approval on what you're dealing with. And so there is a not to exceed there. We expect there to be a competitive evaluation. So we try to put a government estimate the best we can, but so.
The reason I mention is years back on city council when I served in Madison Heights, we were doing a playground, for example. We would tell them what we want there, and then they would bid the price. And I found that to be really helpful, and that we got some really low bids because they weren't aware how much money, you know, we were willing to spend. So that's why I have a concern there.
Yeah. I mean, it's always about government estimates at the end of the day. And in some areas of government, the estimating is a lot better because there might be historical data there that we can look at and say, hey, we need X amount of quantity. This is the going rate and the market rate. We looked at a recent contract and so forth, and you can do some pricing on there. On this, there's not a lot of broadband activity that's out there. So this could end up being 500 or 250, or it could be $2 million. If it's $2 million, we've got to come back and potentially get more appropriation or knock off, you know, part of the scope that they're requesting. But I do appreciate the question that you're asking.
Just so if we didn't appropriate the money today, and you went out for bids, we approved going out to bid for a feasibility study for broadband. Why can't we do that as opposed to appropriating the money now?
Well, I think we've gotten our hands slapped before going out to bid and then coming in after the fact. So we're trying to come in on the front end and say, yeah.
Okay.
And here's what needs to happen as well is vendors want to make sure that there are, there is an appropriation, because that is one thing that you can damage your competitiveness if you put things out to bid and then you don't carry through with it. Pretty soon, when you put out bids in the future, folks aren't bidding anymore. And competition reduces the price tag of government, so.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, I was gonna not bring this stuff up, but Gary, thanks for bringing it up. First, after talking with broadband consultants back when we first got ARPA, Oakland County has like 1,000 non-connected or potential connection sites throughout the whole county, and there's federal money that's already been allocated years before from the FCC to start getting rid of people who don't have access to broadband, in addition to all the federal and state monies that are pouring into something like this. So one, I think we can tell what the answer is going to be from a feasibility study already if we've talked to the people in the field, which isn't that hard, right? I just did it with the phone call and a couple of meetings with Washtenaw County that did one of these 2 years ago. Second, to what you were saying about the precedent it sets of we have to put the money out so people are sure of it. I'm working currently with the chair, and I think y'all were just talking about this, is an anti-violence initiative with the city of Pontiac, where what's been recommended by whoever it is that's in charge of those conversations about spending ARPA money is come back with an RFP, like what we've done with the Climate Action Plan. You get the RFP, then you put up the dollar amount. And then, so there is precedent for doing what you're saying, Gary, that we can say, here's the plan, here's the ask. Once you have the request, we'll put the dollar amount towards it. And then the last thing is, like, people that are in sales aren't gonna not like put in a pitch just because there isn't a dollar amount next to
Well,
it, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, we say that, but there are people in sales who might have put in pitches. It costs thousands of dollars to put in bids, so sometimes they're not just bids. I mean, some of these bids and a bid like this will take a lot of time and investment. So someone, that's why sometimes procurement agencies will do what they call RFIs when they don't have a good government estimate, which is a request for information. But the activity on an RFI isn't very active, because that's a lot of investment of time and money, and there's no guarantee that anybody's going to win. You're just trying to inform the government on what their price tag might be. In the federal government, which I was a contracting officer for 20 years, you could not move forward. The attorneys would not sign off on putting a solicitation out on the street unless you had a Form 9, which was basically the checking account number of where the appropriation was going to come from. So, I mean, that is the practice that the federal government uses, and you know, that is a best practice. But I understand what you're saying about, you know, they're going to know, you know, the price tag. So,
Just one more comment, and that is that I'm all in favor of doing this. I just worry about putting that dollar amount out there. So.
Understood. Thank you. I do want to make a couple of points. One is that we don't know what we don't know. I know that you mentioned there's 1,000 spots where people don't have access, but some communities have a checkerboard within their own community, right? And from an economic development standpoint, it is really important that all of that stuff we heard today about you know, Automation Alley and everything else, we really need the internet in Oakland County to be robust across the county. And that's part of the reason for doing this. We don't know exactly what we don't really know. There's also federal grant funds that are going to be made available, as well as state funds that are made available, but they're going to be looking for the match. And so part of what we're doing is trying to figure out if we're going to you know, have money available to be matching and what that's going to look like. We're also talking through the Tri-County Summit with Macomb and Washtenaw County about broadband across the region. What are we doing that's similar? What are we, where are the holes? And so it is a big topic to try to get our arms around, but to have a feasibility study of what we're doing, what is available in Oakland County and where we need to go is what the purpose of this is. So, and we do plan to piggyback off the Washtenaw County study that was done and other ones that are done in the region, but suffice to say, not all communities have strong broadband across the way for all of their residents right now. And we saw that with the schools especially. a year and a half ago. So anybody else have any other comments? Commissioner Cavell?
Just real quick, I'm going to vote to support this because I understand that we want to get an answer, but I'm also going to resend and forward to you a report that the Washtenaw County Guide did for Oakland County for free that I think is somewhat substantive.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else?
Looks like there's an amendment.
Okay, the amendment, is that on this?
That's on here now.
It is?
Amendment report, yes.
Woodward amendment.
It's under amendment report.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's not.
Something with the reporting.
Oh, it's in red. Yeah, it's on that amendment report. We further resolve the final bid evaluation. Do you see it on there, you guys?
Yeah. A final bid evaluation and vendor selection recommendation shall be submitted to the Economic Development Committee that met right before this for consideration, and that approval is required prior to the release of funding.
Yes, that's it.
That's the Woodward amendment. So we vote on the Woodward amendment first. Is that correct?
We need a motion.
So I need a motion on the Woodward amendment. Commissioner Kowal, supported by Commissioner Charles. Any comments on the amendment? Let's prompt the vote. On the amendment, yes. Thank you. We need all the staff to keep us knowing what the
7-0.
next step is. Okay, we passed the amendment. Now we'll vote on the full resolution as amended.
Hold on.
There we go. Pressure's on. Pressure's on.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. As
Okay.
amended?
As amended.
We have 6 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay, motion
You
carries.
talked me into it, Carrie.
He does that sometimes.
What's that?
Gary's like a
Talks to me
smooth
about
country
it.
lawyer.
He does that sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You talked me into it, Carrie.
Thank you. Oh, so it's Chuck's fault. Okay.
It was.
All right.
I know you thought it'd be, no.
No. You said you were
you.
going to
He didn't want
support
to
it.
take the blame, so he put it on me. That's why.
Yeah, all right.
Passing the buck.
Okay, so motion carries, correct?
You made the case. It was a good
All
case.
right, let's move on to item number 11C, resolution appropriating funding for the Advanced Manufacturing Hub designation for Automation Alley. I need a motion, Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner Moss. All right, Sean, you want to tell us?
I think we're all in here. Were we all in here? I listened to it the last meeting. I was like trying to get us going.
I
See,
know,
Ms.
I'm trying, I'm
Sorry,
trying.
I was
As
trying
long
to get
as
you, now you
trying
have to do the
to,
presentation
operational
again.
efficiency, I appreciate that,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Yes.
Sean Carlson, Deputy County Executive. I'm joined here with Tom Kelly, the Executive Director for Automation Alley. Before you, you have a resolution, and I just wanted to just frame things up here just a little bit before I turn it over to Mr. Kelly. In 1999, the Patterson administration birthed the Automation Alley in large part because of the robust manufacturing in Southeast Michigan. And in order to protect and continue to grow the manufacturing industry. Unfortunately, shortly thereafter, from probably 2000 to 2010, we didn't have a cyclical downturn in manufacturing. We had a structural realignment that was happening. And quite possibly, we could have lost a lot more manufacturers than what we did but for Automation Alley. But Automation Alley has been working towards Industry 4.0, the next industrial revolution. And part of that that we're here in front of you today speaks to that and speaks to the being designated as the U.S. Center for Advanced Manufacturing by the World Economic Forum. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kelly to share a little bit more.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, Commissioners. Some of you, there's a little part due of our conversation from this morning, but, you know, Automation Alley was formed by Oakland County and the Brooks-Patterson administration to really change the perception of Michigan and Oakland County from a Rust Belt to a high-tech area. And we've worked for the last 22 years trying to brand this region. But branding only goes so far, because what's happening in manufacturing is we're embarking on a structural change. Every time there's a structural change, it creates massive risk for those that own the previous structure. So the first industrial revolution was steam. The second industrial revolution was Henry Ford. We invented it right here in Michigan, and we created great wealth for ourselves. And we've been living off of that industrial revolution, because even the third, which was robotics and computers, it built upon the second industrial revolution. So that wealth was still able to be accrued. And at one time, Detroit was the richest city in the world because of that wealth we created from manufacturing. What we saw in 2000, as China began to come on the global scene, Michigan was hurt very badly. And we had 10 years of declining manufacturing jobs in Michigan. If you remember, the joke was, the last one out of Michigan turned out the lights. That happened because Michigan had high sophistication and China had low wage. And we didn't have a good competitive response to that. What's coming now is another structural change, which is this fourth industrial revolution. And what we need to do is make sure that, one, our manufacturers, and especially our small manufacturers, understand this revolution as it's coming. And it's all involved with digitization. And so we are very good in this region of building systems, mostly mechanical systems, that are excellent at making one thing very, very cheaply and leanly. And what's happening is that system is going away. So that those systems tend to be capital intensive. They tend to be very difficult and ornery to maintain. Hence, you need a lot of systems, a lot of smart people to maintain them. And we're moving to things like 3D printing, where you digitally design on a computer and you push a button and the computer makes the manufactured part. This world is coming, whether we like it or not. And we are structurally not well prepared for this industrial revolution. And so now we're talking with the World Economic Forum because we need two things. One, we need to culturally change how our smalls think about manufacturing. And two, we need a mechanism to tell the world how good we are and how this transition is occurring in Michigan. And the World Economic Forum is a major convening body for the largest manufacturers in the world. They're convening Davos in just a couple weeks from now. Yeah, and that is where. But we have to make sure that we are a part of that conversation, because as those dollars get allocated all over the world, we want to make sure that the World Economic Forum Center for Advanced Manufacturing is right here. And it will be the only one in the world for the forum. It'll be right here in Troy, Michigan. So I guess I'll stop there and refer back to the chair.
Excellent. Thank you. So Mike was suggesting you just talk about the three pillars one more time and
the industrial revolution?
Well, how Oakland County fits as one of the three pillars for the World Forum.
Absolutely, yes. So the World Economic Forum has two major events in the world. They have their Davos, which is where they bring together the CEOs and world leaders. There's 172 countries in the world. The last Davos they did, they had 120 world leaders. So it is by far the premier place where people talk about what is happening in the world. The second event they do is in Tianjin, China, where they have what's called the Meeting of the New Champions. And we plan to make to host an event at this World Center here in Troy, Michigan, to make that the third pillar for the World Economic Forum. That is our intention to integrate a convening for the World Economic Forum. So while there's many things happening around this center that will occur throughout the year, our intent is to be a convening mechanism for all manufacturers around the world. And why that's important is convening leads to understanding, which leads to action, which leads to manufacturers coming here. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. Commissioner Moss.
So basically, you're talking about holding the big economic show here.
Not Davos, not Tianjin, but having a presence, having a conference here.
Yes.
That would be World Economic Forum, yes.
Yes. No, and as for China, who knows how long that'll be going on, given current events. Okay, no, I get that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone
else have any questions? Commissioner McGilvery.
Is $3 million per year that we're appropriating, is that out of the general fund or ARP money or what?
That is general fund strategic investments. That is being matched by MEDC dollar for dollar as well. So we were able to get a match.
Yes.
I really enjoy this committee and its members who ask really good questions that inform us all. I do. Commissioner Cowell.
And then the rest of us as well.
Thank you. Just a comment, I guess what you're saying is we need to be a whole lot more nimble. And I imagine that this 4.0, we won't be caught so flat-footed anymore when we need to, all of a sudden have a course correction and have whatever happens that, so we can respond quickly. So I think it's a really good way to go. Just wondering though, first of all, how many counties are members of Automation Alley? And even though we're housed right here in Oakland County, I know there's several counties, and were they approached to contribute to this effort at all?
So they were not, because it was my intention that I want this center housed at Troy in Oakland County. And we felt we had two constituents that were very important to accomplish that. One was Oakland County, the other was the state of Michigan. It certainly could have been possible, but I think it was not our, we could have gone straight to the state of Michigan, because obviously this is a huge win for the state of Michigan. But we didn't want to run the risk that the state of Michigan would determine where this gets housed. So we said, let's form a partnership where Oakland County and the state of Michigan join Automation Alley to form this partnership with the World Economic Forum, because then everyone's interests are protected. And we want to make sure that this center does not accidentally get moved anywhere else.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good question.
I did want to follow up too. I mean, it's important, and I mentioned this earlier, $4 billion investment in the Lake Orion plant, GM's biggest investment in their history. What's important to recognize and how these two things, tie together is with electric vehicles coming online, that calls for a lot fewer parts. And a lot fewer parts puts a big burden on our Tier 2, Tier 3, our small manufacturing enterprises, our 2,200 of them that exist here in Oakland County. So we need to start to work now to get them tied into this digitization to make sure that they're around in the future. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, then let's prompt the vote, please.
We don't have to.
You have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, that concludes Economic Development and Infrastructure. Moving on to number 12, Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee recommendations. Item A, sponsoring the 13th Annual International Lyon Township Kite Festival on June 4th and June 5th. I need a motion. Commissioner Long, supported by Commissioner McGilvery. This is, I don't think. Does anybody have any questions on this one? This is Phil's baby.
Yeah.
It's a good event. And as I was saying yesterday, I was listening to the Lago meeting, and they called on me because they saw me on the screen. But what I said then was, we don't have a lot of events in the southwest end of Oakland County to bring families together like some of the more older communities, like Royal Oak. I mean, every week there's some festival in Royal Oak. So this one is a really good one because it brings families together, all ages. It's really a fun event. So, and I was honored that Phil asked me if I wanted to co-sponsor. So with that, if nobody's got any other comments or questions, let's prompt Commissioner McGilvery.
One question. Did they approach Oakland County Parks to be a part of this at all?
I don't think so. I don't know.
It's a commissioner-sponsored.
That's something for maybe next year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, thanks.
Tie them in, yep. Thank you.
Maybe,
Let's remind Phil, next year we do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I could do it too, since I'm a co-sponsor. But it's his project, really.
I heard you guys talking.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion carries. Okay, so that concludes the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee, and now we need to go into closed session with Corporation Counsel, closed session, Oak versus Oakland County. So I need a motion to go into closed session. Commissioner Charles, supported by Commissioner Kowal. And we need to ask anybody who's not relevant to the meeting to step outside.
necessarily law.
Oh, I agree with you, the one that, yeah,
The one at the road commission.
yeah.
It's like, how
It's
many
ridiculous.
minutes do I have?
Oh, right,
Totally
yes.
agree.
Okay,
No one goes that way anymore, this direction, everyone's this way.
yeah. Okay, so we are back in open session. I need a motion to accept the recommendations as stated in closed session from Commissioner McGilvery, supported by Commissioner Moss. Go ahead and prompt the vote.
We have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Thanks. All right, next up is our second public comment. Is there anybody from the public that cares to address the Finance Committee? All right. Go ahead.
Marenko, City of Novi. If my property was valued at $100,000 20 years ago, and I was paying 5% taxes on it, I'd be paying $5,000 a year. 20 years later, if my property is valued at $200,000 and the tax rate dropped from 5% to 4.5%, I'd be paying $9,000 a year. Even though the rate went down, that doesn't mean the taxes went down. In fact, when going from 5,000 to 9,000 over the 20-year period, that would be a 120% increase in taxes over the 20-year period. So even though a millage may go down, that doesn't mean that the taxes for the property owners have gone down. So it's not an equal thing. And I'm saying they were talking about the millage.
Yes, sir.
For the parks, and that the millage rate went down, so the taxes aren't increasing. But it's not necessarily that if the millage rate goes down, if your property's increased, your taxes still probably have gone up.
If I may, the Headley Amendment, well, there's Headley and Prop A, the two of them together, it can only go up 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. And until the last year or so, the rate of inflation has been 1.9. So as your house appreciates in value and you get reassessed because your house is appreciated in value, you will pay more. Now, if the appreciation in value makes your house have to have a tax bill that is higher than 5% of the rate of inflation, whichever is less, you then have a heavy rollback. But yes, it's not static because the value of your property appreciates. Now, if it depreciates, as we learned during the Great Recession, that your house was, say, we were taking 100,000, okay? It then dropped to 40,000, which happened. Then it goes back up a couple years later to 100. You still can only go up from the 40,000 in those little increments of 5 or the rate of inflation, whichever is less. So what you're saying, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but a lot of what you are ascribing to tax increase is the natural appreciation of your housing, of the value of your home, which is a good thing. I mean,
But that's the way the citizens view it, is that they're paying more taxes. If they're paying more taxes,
Ordinarily, we don't have
We don't do,
excuse me,
get into-
ordinarily, we don't have a debate in public comment. We allow the public to just say what they want. So I paused the timer. You still have a minute, almost a minute and a half, Mr. Bronco, if you care to continue.
And I agreed with Commissioner Mulvaney when he was saying that if you put a price tag on it and then say, how much is this, then you're going to get back what's on the price tag. So I was thinking maybe there might be a way to say, we'll approve this project if it's a reasonable cost, and we're setting aside certain undisclosed funds to do that. When you submit a bid, then you're not precluding what the price on the bid's going to be. And if they want to bid and do business with the county, they would come back with a reasonable bid. And then if you look at it and say, yes, that's reasonable, then, okay, that's the money that we're going to fund for it. That way you still keep it kind of under wraps as to how much money you have that you would willing to spend, but not tell them what that is. And on the third pillar, on the, I don't know about you, but I don't like being second pillar, much less third pillar. So I think that we should strive to be first pillar rather than third pillar.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bronco. Anybody else care to speak in public comment? Seeing no one, I will close public comment, and if there's no other business to come before the Finance Committee, I will call us adjourned at 2:46.
I missed my next meeting, right?